My name is Michael Stewart.
And I'm Corley.
Today we're presenting on our project for Rec and Eco regarding the GMA Nature Trail. For the general description of our project, we conducted a chemical treatment at the Georgia Museum of Agriculture Nature Trail to control invasive species. We also created educational materials for the project to educate trail users on invasive species and herbicide treatments that we would conduct during the project. Our stakeholder was Ms. Heather Brazel, and we collaborated with Mr. Garrett Boone, the director of the GMA, and Ms. Caroline Shaw at the Bugwood Center to advise us on the project and the goings of our project. 2 posters were created, one focusing on invasive plant species found on the site, and the other focusing on chemical treatments across 3 distinct sites during our project. For the goals and objectives of our project, we had a primary goal being ecological improvement of Nature Trail. Ms. Brazel outlined this for us because she decided that we need to rid the site of invasive species and allow for native species to take over again. We had 2 secondary goals being aesthetics and public education. Our aesthetics goal was outlined by Mr. Garrett Boone at the GMA. He decided to want to leave a green edge around our treatment sites in order to be more appealing to visitors. He also wanted to use chemical treatment in order to open up the sites and allow for a more appealing look of the Nature Trail. Public education was also a goal of ours. This was outlined by Ms. Brazel. She decided to do this due to wanting to educate the public on invasive species and the use of herbicides to treat invasive species. For the objectives to achieve our goals, we have the chemical treatment of 3 separate sites across Nature Trail and the creation of 2 posters to serve as educational materials to the public.
For our invasive species treatment, we used 2 herbicides, one being glyphosate, also known as Roundup. Glyphosate treats most annual and perennial grasses and broadleaf plants. It is a systemic herbicide with a mode of action of an amino acid synthesis inhibitor. This prevents a plant from producing necessary proteins required for plant growth. It is non-soil active with a half-life of 47 days, degradation primarily through microbial metabolism. We also use triclopyr, known as Garline. Garline treats most broadleaf and woody species, disregarding grasses generally. It is also a systemic herbicide with a mode of action of an auxin mimic. Auxin is a primary growth hormone in plants. Garline provides an overabundance of growth hormone, which causes the plant to grow uncontrollably, leading to mortality. It is also a non-soil active herbicide with a half-life of 30 days, degradation via microbial metabolism, photolysis, and hydrolysis. Lastly, we use crop oil for our surfactant. For our treatment methods, we used foliar application, cut stem, and hack and squirt. Foliar application was used for plants that were lower than waist height. Cut stem was used for plants that were above waist height, but within the capabilities of the loppers. Hack and squirt was used for larger trees that were beyond the capabilities of the loppers. For each method, we used a mixture of glyphosate at 20%, triclopyr at 20%, and crop oil at 2%. Foliar application utilized a 5-gallon backpack sprayer for application. Cut stem used loppers for removing the stem, a squirt bottle, and/or paintbrushes to apply the herbicide. Hack and squirt used a hatchet or an axe used to create a wound in the cambium, and a squirt bottle was used to insert the herbicide.
All mixtures provided were outlined by Mrs. Brazel. She decided to give us this in order to ensure our safety while using the herbicides and make sure we didn't create too potent of a blend of herbicides.
Here is an example of me using the cut stump method. I cut the stump as low as possible to mitigate any future hazards. Michael then used a paintbrush and/or a squirt bottle with our chemical mixture to apply herbicide immediately to the stem. Here in the bottom corner is Michael applying herbicide to an understory of predominantly camphor tree using a 5-gallon backpack sprayer with the chemical mixture. And the top is an example of the hack and squirt method, where a hatchet was used to create a wound in the cambium and herbicide was immediately applied in the wound. For larger trees, this can be conducted around the circumference of the tree to increase the probability of mortality.
All herbicide application was supervised by Ms. Brazel. Mr. Garrett Boone decided for our application herbicides that we would need a supervisor and an experienced supervisor like Ms. Brazel in order to ensure our safety while applying the herbicides on the Nature Trail. For the budget of our project, as can be seen, a large majority of the budget is taken up by herbicide costs. It's a very expensive product used for high-level management in order to rid the site of invasives, so that makes a lot of sense. As can be seen here, we also have the sources for each of our costs and the associated sales tax. So all costs of the budget tax is included. But as we can see, glyphosate, triclopyr, and crop oil make up a large percentage of the cost of our project. We have our paintbrush set and spray bottles. These were provided by Ms. Brazel, but we had to include them in the budget anyway. Tools used like loppers, hatchets, and the backpack sprayer were also provided by her, but these were not required to be put in the budget. We also had the cost of the Staples custom poster print for our 2 posters that we used for our project, coming out to $16, which is fairly cheap. Then we also, for our sum total came out to $327.90 for our project. For the time frame of our project, we began our project in the month of February. During this time, we defined treatment areas and treatment methods. We met with Ms. Brazel to ensure the logistics of the project and ensure it would go smoothly. During this time, we just tried to lay out the roadmap for our project and ensure that it went smoothly. For the month of March, we conducted site treatments along with the planning and creating of educational materials, along with completing the progress report. We participated in the weed wrangle event during this time period, along with doing our own workday ourselves with Ms. Brazel. During the month of April, we completed the presentation, as we're doing now, and along with completing the final report for the project.
The Weed Wrangle is an annual event hosted by Ms. Heather Brazel. This year it was held on March 15th, and it was conducted by volunteers and many members of the community as well as ABAC students. It is focused on invasive species removal on the trail. Here's an example of Michael applying tags that were placed on native and invasive plant species to help with identification. Not all volunteers are competent in their plant identification and the differentiation between desirable species and undesirable species.
Many members of the community came out to this event, and many ABAC alumni. Dr. Hightower, Tristan Hansford, and his wife Kaylin Hansford came out to the event. So it was nice seeing multiple members of the ABAC community come out to represent ABAC and help the nature trail get back to a more natural system, along with educating the public regarding chemical treatment. For educational materials, all poster design was advised by Ms. Brazel and Mr. Boone. These 2 individuals have a lot of input on our project, and so they decided to have a lot of input on the posters we created. These posters will be placed at the GMA, so Mr. Garrett Boone wanted to ensure that the posters were to his level of quality and standard. Ms. Brazel also has experience in creating poster design, so it was great having her as an advisor for this. These posters will be installed at a later date along the trail. Mr. Garrett Boone and his staff at the Nature Trail will decide how they'll be placed and what sort of parameters they'll be used for placing them. All he tasked us with doing was creating the posters themselves. Ms. Brazel feels very strong about herbicide, and she feels that it is often misrepresented in the public in a more negative light, especially with products like glyphosate, which is very commonly used and improperly used. So she feels like we need to educate the public on herbicide and how it can be used safely and the benefits of it and how it can help return systems to a more natural setting. For our first poster, as you can see, it's all about invasive species. So we have camphor tree, Chinese privet, coral ardesia, and Japanese climbing fern for our 4 species that are present on the site. There were others, but Ms. Brazel decided that these were the main species for the site that we need to talk about. Underneath each species, we talk about where it's native to, with the majority of them being from Asia, all of them being from Asia. But as you can see, we have also various facts regarding each species, such as camphor tree growing very tall due to it being a tree. It can grow to 100 feet tall. We also talk about how the leaves, whenever they're crunched up, can have a very strong odor. This can be very useful for ID for treating invasive species. For Chinese privet, we talk about how it can spread through the use of root suckers, which can be a very large problem for treating. We also discuss the identifying features for it, such as large purple berries, which are very visible and making it easy to ID for treatment. We also talk about, for coral ardesia, the crenate margin, which is a rounded margin in which the teeth of it are completely round and smooth. We also talk about the red berries of it, which are very visible. We saw a lot of that while treating it, making it very easy to treat, along with the crenate margin. For Japanese climbing fern, we talk about how the species spreads through spores, which is very unique compared to the other species present on the site due to it being a fern. Well, this can be a large problem when treating the species due to the spores getting on someone's clothes, and thus the treaters of the species can then go to other sites not knowingly and spread the species even more, causing more issues with the species.
The GMA Nature Trail is divided into 3 separate sites, each characterized by their duration of treatments. Site 1 has 3 to 4 years of chemical treatment. Site 2 has 2 years of treatment. And Site 3 has 0 years of treatment. Site 1 was predominantly using hack and squirt, stump spray, and foliar application originally. It has a large invasive tree species that was removed using hack and squirt. That would be the camphor tree that was dominant in the overstory. Site 2 has residual dead camphor trees that were present in the overstory, but resulting from past hack and squirt applications, we now have a dominant understory component of camphor tree saplings that me and Michael, in the second year of treatment, did a foliar application for. Site 3 has no treatment, and it is predominantly occupied by an overstory of camphor tree with mixed natives and an understory of Coral ardisia and camphor tree saplings. Each site has Japanese climbing fern and Chinese privet present at various levels of encouragement.
Ms. Brazel has treated Japanese climbing fern to a very high degree on the site. It has become much less of a problem. Coral ardisia and camphor tree are the two main opponents when it comes to treating the site, but Japanese climbing fern has been greatly diminished, but it is still seen, and due to the spores, it can be very hard to treat. As it all can also be seen in the bottom right corner of this poster and in the middle of the previous poster, we have a QR code that links to the Bugwood Center in order to educate users of the trail on invasive species they may be interested in or native species they're interested in on the site due to it having various information on plants, animals, insects, and all sorts of other entities. For the overall success of our project, we believe we succeeded in accomplishing the goals outlined in our project. We were able to achieve the goals of aesthetics, public education, and ecological improvement of the site. We believe that by chemically removing the species present on the site that were invasive, we were able to return the site to more natural ecological function. By also removing the species through chemical treatment, we were also able to increase the visibility of the site, thus allowing for a better aesthetic value. We also allowed for the green border that Mr. Garrett Boone outlined in our project, and by doing this, we were able to increase aesthetics to the visitors. To gauge total success of the site, future students will likely have to go out and actually see what's going there because herbicide is not a very fast-acting tool. It takes time. As you can see in this image, we do see a change in the community, but there's areas we missed. There's things that take longer. We can't just look at it right now and go ahead and tell how much we really changed. There's still a lot to be done with the site. So in the future, people will have to go out and gauge our total success. We believe that through the use of our posters, we were also able to achieve our goal of educating the public. Our posters outline the invasive species present on the site, thus allowing users to be able to tell what species are native or invasive and what species should be treated and not be treated. The site treatment poster will also educate the public on chemical treatment and the impact that chemical treatment can have on forested systems, and how herbicide can be a useful tool for management and be able to rid a site of invasive species.
For future ideas, students can create additional educational materials for the nature trail along the continuing site treatment. These separate sites are going to change and more sites might be added in the future. Educational materials for the public need to be updated regularly. The poster regarding site treatments will need to be updated due to the conditions of each site changing. A brochure featuring native plant and animal species that can be found on the trail could be beneficial. Catering to individuals such as birders or plant enthusiasts could boost the use of the nature trail in significant ways.
For the acknowledgement of our project, we'd like to thank our stakeholder, Ms. Heather Brazel, for all of our support of the project, whether that be through poster design or overall outlining logistics of the project and helping get us tools, equipment, herbicide, and all we needed to complete the project in a timely manner. We would also like to thank Mr. Garrett Boone and Ms. Caroline Shaw for helping outline the project and ensuring we accomplished what they wanted with the project and that we were able to accomplish stuff to their abilities. We'd also like to thank our professor, Dr. Vanessa Lane, for helping with our writing for the project, whether that be our progress report, our project outline, or any other writings we had for the project. And with that, we'd like to thank, that's all I got.